I started out with I wanted to build websites. I was intrigued by HTML and just putting something online and having people being able to visit it. So I experimented with GeoCities in the beginning and then front page. I'm pretty certain I learned how to actually build a website. The only problem was I had no designs to work off, which is why I started designing and then became a web designer. And then when Gowalla hired me, rest in peace, I started focusing more and more on mobile because the iPhone was such a great device. Like when it came out, it was the thing we've all been waiting for years, and it transformed the way we look at mobile devices today. So that's pretty damn cool. After Gowalla, I joined Instagram. At that point, the app was designed by their CEO, Kevin Systrom, and I came up with this 12-month plan to redesign the entire app, screen by screen. Not just because I'm a designer and I constantly want to redesign stuff. It's more like if we add a feature or if we want to tweak something and we have to touch a certain screen, why not make use of that situation and redesign that screen? And that was why for a couple of months the app was kind of, one part was redesigned, the other part was still had the old design, but it was part of a bigger plan, so, and it gave me confidence to keep on pushing. And eventually we reached that goal, and that was pretty cool. Along the way, I learned a lot. I started as a freelancer, just at home. We get pretty lonely really fast, so I found some developer friends just to rent an office together and get some feedback and actually talk to human beings. But right now, as you know, I'm at Facebook. I'm still at the Instagram team, so the Instagram team is a small part inside Facebook. And they call us the best funded startup because we still do basically what we want, but at the same time, we have access to the resources Facebook has to offer. Like their amazing campus, their staff is amazing. I can walk over to their cameras, to the camera team, and ask them for advice, like how are you guys tackling this or that, and they'll help us. They have a translation team which allowed us to translate the app in 25 languages, so it was pretty damn awesome. And at the same time, our team is growing. Like I said, I started out on my own, and like now, like over the past 2 years, I learned how to function in a team with a bunch of different people who do a bunch of different stuff. After talking with the teachers, like I learned that, especially students in the audience, you have developers, designers, office management, and everything. And it's funny because if you take all those people together, you can actually build a damn good startup because a startup needs all of that. And it's one of the most important things that everyone should learn, no matter what your job description is how to communicate with each other. I don't know how to write a single line of code. I can do HTML, I can do CSS, I can hack some JavaScript together if I want to. I will probably break in half the browsers. But what I learned is by communicating, by learning how to communicate with your developers and with other people around you, like my boss who makes all the big decisions, or the business guys who decide about that, you kind of don't have to learn how to code, or if you're a developer, you don't have to learn how to design. But you just, you form one big whole, and you know exactly what is expected of you, and you know how to communicate your stuff to your colleagues. I sit right next to our lead iOS developer, the lead Android developer sitting right behind me, and we communicate constantly. I don't need to explain them how they need to implement my designs. I'll just give them the assets. I know how to slice the assets because I know how they prefer to have them delivered. They know how to implement it. They'll open my PSD, look at the font size, font colors, everything, and animations. We talk for 5 minutes and we make all these movements with our hands, and then we're like, okay, yeah, I gotcha, and then we go back and we implement it. So that's a lot of fun. Even like I have a colleague of mine in the audience, François de Liège. He's also Belgian, by the way. He's started working on our ops team 3 months ago, and he's been an incredible help. So yeah, we have our team is made out of different nationalities with different styles and different characters of people. Yet again, it forms one big whole unit, and it's great to move fast and to know where you're going and know that there are always people who have your back. So I'm going to continue babbling off like this until someone has a question, and then I'll probably continue babbling about that or something else, and then I'll forget what the original question was. So at any point, raise your hand, and I'll answer that question. We think now would be a good time to ask a question. Yes. Aha, collaboration. That's the next half hour, Phil. When I first started working for Guala, I worked as a freelancer for 6 months while they were working out the whole visa process. And while it wasn't impossible to do it, it feels like you're working at half the speed. At least that's my experience. I had the same experience with when I joined Instagram. We lived in Austin and they were in San Francisco. And we just had a baby, so we couldn't move for 3 months. And even though, yes, we were constantly chatting and over Messenger or Skyping or whatever, it's not the same as being in the office. Once you're in the office, you're twice as fast. You don't need to chat all the time to understand. You just nod and whatever, or like someone looks at your screen like, oh, okay, I got to do this, and then they go off. So yes, you can work from home. I wasn't suited for it because I just like having people around me to talk with, but it's possible. So it's my personal take on that. Let me think. What else can I talk about? How a lot of stuff to talk about. Just keep forgetting it. See, also being in San Francisco is a really interesting thing. One of the reasons I wanted to move to the U.S. is because there are a lot more job opportunities. There are more and more tech companies starting in Belgium, but if you want to like just dive in at a full scale, it's definitely easier to do it in the U.S. One of the problems is you can't go to a bar in San Francisco without overhearing someone explain their idea for the next new Facebook, and like, all right, cool story, bro. I'll go to the next bar. But it's something you learn how to deal with, and just like surround yourself with good people, not just your colleagues, but friends you can spend time with after hours, and be sure to keep in touch with how the rest of the world actually uses the internet, or how they actually use your app. And I'm at this point right now where I'm trying to not design for other designers, not design for other techie people, but just for people. I don't want to use fancy names for certain features. It needs, like, you need to be able to read it, to see it, and to immediately know what it does, which is sadly something a lot of people here don't get, and they'll build something that's awesome, but you cannot possibly explain it to your mom what it does. Question?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. So
I'm not surprised.
When you started off at Instagram, did you guys have like somebody doing UX, driving like, you know, how the user flow is going to be, the whole interaction, or you just created that? How do you differentiate between the design between iOS and Android? Where I work, we were kind of debating, you know, a lot of apps I see, they're either like iOS stylish, and then they'll, use the same kind of design on Android. It looks kind of crappy. But and then there's also a big debate going on between iOS, which is more skeuomorphic, versus flat design, which is the new Jelly Bean and probably Key Lime Pie we're gonna see, and also on Windows. So which one? What's your preference on that? Another question might be like.
Can I answer the first ones first? I'm already forgot the first one.
It's about UX.
So no, when I joined Instagram at the same time, another designer from the Netherlands joined, Michael Lumens, and we basically split up tasks. Like, he does everything web, and I do everything mobile, both iOS and Android. At that point, I only had experience with designing for iOS, which is why the Instagram Android app looks so much like an iOS app. and I'm like, I have plans to like gradually like move it more towards a more Android look, because I believe every operating system deserves decent apps that were built for the operating system and weren't just a copy from iOS over to Android. And it's all about experience. At this point, I have a much better understanding of Android. I'm much more confident with what I'm doing. But we still have the split between mobile and web. We're hiring more and more designers at this point, and those designers will probably work more cross-platform. But I remember one of your questions. When we started, again, the design was done by Kevin Systrom. He hacked it together, and it worked great. So when I came on board, I was basically responsible for everything. At the same time, it wasn't just me. Like I was working on something, a developer came over and we talked about it, and he had some ideas and he asked me questions. And when I couldn't answer those questions, I knew I needed to go back to the drawing board and edit a bunch of stuff. And I would constantly show the design and the progress of the implementation to as many people as possible, and to as a very like. Not just always going to developers, but also people of the community team, because they know how the people who actually use the app, they know how they would respond to certain changes and stuff. So yeah, it's all about getting a lot of feedback and listening carefully and learning how to deal with feedback. A lot of designers have an ego. I think that just comes with the job. I think I lost my ego somewhere between Koala and Instagram, and I'm really happy about that. And it's all about listening to people. Sometimes what they say makes no sense, and just nod and be polite. But oftentimes, you really need to listen carefully, because often they don't really know how to explain themselves, and you kind of have to keep asking questions and questions and questions till you get to the core issue of what they're trying to describe. So there's that.
Final question. So, there were a lot of photo apps out there, and Instagram just revolutionized kind of and made it more fun to share photos, take photos. Yeah. What were your thoughts behind that? Can you, when you approach a design for something like Instagram, are you looking to create something totally unique, like new, nobody has done before? Or are you looking at popular patterns? Like, how did you come up with that? And what's your personal style?
All right, so I think the early success of Instagram was partly because it was really well timed, and at the same time, Kevin and Mikey and Shane and everyone, they're working their ass off to keep improving it. It started out as the app was basically a wrapper around an HTML5 app, and that was their prototype, and that's how they launched it. And after a while, they discovered that it wasn't performing fast enough, so they switched it over to a native view. I have this philosophy, like if your app is meant to be a fun app, more like a gimmicky app, like you buy it and you use it once or twice, go crazy with the design, and you can even over design it, and that could be part of the fun. But if you want like the more hours you want people to spend with your app on a daily or a weekly base, the less the design should be there. And in the end, the goal is if you want your users to use your app multiple times a day, they shouldn't notice the design. At the point where if they notice the design, you did something wrong. It's all about taking a step back and making sure the content shines, and respecting the content and respecting both the platform you're designing for. So yeah, it's almost like a graph. So there's that.
I had another question. Did Facebook's acquisition change anything for you personally or in the company?
No. Which, to be honest, it surprised all of us. I'm not going to say the transition was easy, especially not for me, because I had no experience with big companies. I don't know anything about politics and how to politely communicate an idea to someone else. Well, it took about 2 months, and after that, we were like up and running and better than before. And like I said, we had access to so many great resources. and we were allowed to hire people from inside Facebook, people from outside Facebook. So yeah, our team has doubled in size. I think we're about 30 right now. And it's great. We still have the same vibe with all of our team as we had before. It's only the commute is a bit longer now, and I sit on a shuttle 2 hours a day.
Yeah, right here. You've tackled iPhone, you've tackled Android. Have you thought about designing an Instagram experience for motion control?
After seeing the previous demo, I was thinking about it. No, we're still 30 people for a community of over 100 million active users. That's still a tiny team. So we focus on where the numbers are, iOS and Android. That's currently all we can cover. So we don't do stuff like that. But luckily, we have a lot of developers who use our API to do stuff like that. And they've made some of the coolest things, from random screensavers to, I guess what you're saying must be out there somewhere.
I'm working on it right now.
See? That's awesome. We should talk. Yeah, it's all about picking your fights, and we could probably do more platforms at the same time, but we want to be great at every platform we tackle, which is why we're doing iOS and Android right now, and we're proud of it. We're also doing web at the same time, so that's ramping up. So the question was, why did we wait with Android, and why didn't we launch it together with iPhone, I guess? Well, I wasn't there when they launched iPhone. I was a year before I joined. But it was just like, we were all working day and night on the iPhone app. And at a certain point, we were like, okay, this isn't a good enough state that we can kind of focus on Android for a while. And then we started working on that. Like, it was, when I started working on the project, they were building it. They were working on it 3 months on the back end and making it work on Android. And then in 1 month's time, we did the entire interface, both design and implementation. So we didn't get a lot of sleep, but it was a lot of fun.
Coming from a development and designing standpoint, we were able to understand the two sides when you're working with developers and designers. But what would be key for you, or what would be the best advice that was key for you to understanding how developers communicate with you and how you could communicate with them, where you two can have a really good synergy together?
It's about being a good listener and being a good communicator. I've worked with developers in the past who didn't know how to communicate what they did to me. I'm not a smart guy, so you need to really make it really simple and explain it like that. I've worked, and I'm currently working with developers who are great at explaining what they do and how they do things, and how they tell me how I can make their life better, easier to work. And I do the same. Like if I design something and they're like, sorry, we can't do it, I'll ask them, like, why can't you do it? What can I do better? Like, make my life easier by telling me what the constraints are. So again, communicating, listening, very, very important in a team of any size.
So, well, that's loud. So I noticed on Instagram there seems to be a lot of content, especially maybe in the last half year, that is not just like people posting photos. It's maybe text that they found in a graphic format somewhere on the web and things like that. And those still show up a lot in the featured or the what's hot, tab or whatever. So I'm curious kind of how Instagram is approaching that content. Are you trying to guide users towards a certain Instagram experience, and how does that affect your design decisions relating things like what's hot, or is it kind of just like whatever the users want, that's what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's about 10% trying to make your users do something, and 90% just listening and see what they do with your product. And you have to realize that what you build isn't your baby anymore when you release it. At that point, it becomes a tool for other people to express themselves. If they want to express themselves through text and other stuff they found, so be it. Then we need to move with them. You can be stubborn and alienate your community, or you can follow and actually make the tools, adapt the tools so they become even better for them. we're very lucky that we have a kick-ass community team. Started out as one guy, and I think they're at 6 or 7 right now. And it's their job to listen and see what people do with the app. They help setting up Insta Meets or Insta Walks, and they'll give us that feedback. They'll tell us like if a certain flow we thought was really easy. They'll tell us when people have no idea what's going on, when they're just like randomly tapping around. And it surprised me when I joined Instagram that a community team can have so much value, because they are one of the main reasons Instagram is what it is today. That together with just a buttload of work. So. Crickets. He asks good questions. You can keep asking questions so I can keep talking.
Maybe, so I work at a large corporation, and when basically PM product manager will drive like the new feature that needs to come out, and we have like a UX guy who's going to talk. We'll have a meeting and we'll discuss and then define the feature set. How do you guys work at Instagram now that you're a big company? You have a PM and UX, and also when let's say you have an idea. What I sometimes feel, there's no way to quickly like prototype something because we have like a big process. Is there a way? Do you prototype? Do you sit just with the engineer and just like hack something up and see how that looks? How does the flow work?
I basically sit together with an engineer, and if he thinks my idea isn't completely insane, he'll work on it in his evening or weekend or when he has like 5 minutes. And we can only do that because we're sitting right next to each other. And we understand the value of prototyping certain things. Because you can have some great ideas, but they might be a hard sell. I want to say higher up, but like to your manager, until you can actually show it, and then they can have the light bulb moment. But our flow is basically like Kevin has an idea of a feature he wants to do. We'll discuss it. If we all agree we should be doing it, then engineering starts looking at like, okay, what do we need to do on the platforms? Like, what are the possibilities? And then design-wise, we just hired a design manager, and we just start whiteboarding. We start with entire flows on a whiteboard. I'll take photos of it. I'll make more detailed wireframes. We'll discuss the flow again. At that point, I start jumping in Photoshop. But the key aspect there is getting the flow right. Once you have that, you have a solid base to work on. I used to just jump into Photoshop and mock something up, and then like we looked at it and like this is completely unusable. Yeah.
So you sort of already talked about it, but can you just speak about the website views and process behind that? Why it's kind of been a slow rollout, sort of, and just anything you want to talk about that?
Because there's one designer and one developer working on it. They're working really hard, and we're figuring out what to do with the web. Like, we have a lot of options, and again, we're going to try and make it as good as possible. I guess you'll see a lot more over the next coming months or 12 months. I don't know, but it's going to be pretty awesome. So I can't talk a lot more about that. Sorry.
Hey, so there's a lot of really amazing students and talent here.
Yeah.
And you found a lot of really successful teams and, have come out here, like you said, to really kind of dive in. What advice would you give these guys that maybe want to move out here? What's the first kind of job or team or culture they should look for?
I would first advise them to find a good wife, because without my wife, this would all not have been possible. It depends. Because I know at the age you guys are, you might not specifically know what you want to do, so you might still be in a more exploration phase, and it's hard to look at a startup or any company from the outside and get a good idea of how it is working on the inside. So what I would say is try and get in touch with people who actually work at the different companies, and email back and forth, or if you're in the city, go have a coffee with them, and talk about how it is to actually work there. And at that point, you're free to talk to all the companies you want. Go for interviews, see how it is on the inside, see what questions they ask you. The interview process will give you a pretty damn good idea of how it is on the inside. And maybe the first company you join might not be the company you're looking for, but then maybe the second one will. There are a lot of opportunities here, or in Belgium, whatever. And the skills you guys are learning today are very valuable, and every company is looking for people who are good at that. As long as you're passionate about it and you have this ability to get obsessed with something, you have an incredible value for any company out there.
My question is about mergers and acquisition.
Okay.
For a company that's doing good, there are people or other bigger corporations that are interested in your company. Could you give us an insight on which corporations are circling around and which corporations you are leaning towards?
What do you mean? From if I was being acquired?
Which corporation wants to buy your company?
I work for Facebook right now. I think you should ask Mark Zuckerberg. I'm in no position, and I have no experience to answer that question.
So maybe 2 more questions.
So I was just wondering why you came here rather than doing all those amazing things in Belgium.
He's my colleague. It was always a dream of mine to live in the US for at least a couple of years and really experience the culture. It might look like what we have in Europe, and the culture over here in the US are very similar, but once you live here, you notice all the tiny details, and after a while you learn that there are actually huge differences in culture, which is really, really interesting. Like if someone in the US tells you like, oh, that was cool, let's meet up next week, they don't mean it. They're like, they're just being polite. And a bunch of other stuff you learn here, which is interesting. So yeah, it turned out to be a great choice, and we moved over here. We had a beautiful daughter, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying my work. I'm enjoying my private life. It's definitely not easy being this far from family, but FaceTime helps a lot. Yeah.
Just one question. What do you think about flat design?
I saw the whole skeuomorphic versus flat design quibble. Design whatever you feel feels best for the product. Start with looking at the content, then look at what your target audience is, and use those 2 factors to pick your design style and build it out. That's what we did. Like a year ago, Instagram didn't have any design style, and now we have a firm style. Like anytime we need to build a new screen for something, we just use existing controls we have and put it together. And actually, every time we're like, okay, we need a new control for this, we need to stop and ask ourselves a question like, do we really need it? What's wrong with the controls we currently have? And it guides us to keep things as simple as possible and don't shove new controls into the face of our users.
One more.
I have one last thing to say after the questions. Okay.
So why did you change? You said that you thought education was not important. Why did you change your mind on that?
For one, seeing all the students sitting here, seeing the presentations they gave, they told me they did it in a week, which is downright amazing. If you look at the design, if you look at how smooth it works and the communication with the server and all, doing that in a week, that's insane. I tried going to college twice, but I never found a direction that felt like it was made for me, for what I wanted to do with my life. But again, what these kids are doing right now, it's amazing. So yeah, I would definitely, if I was 18 again, I know where I would go to school. I'm being paid in pizza right here. So. Hi.
How do you see yourselves within 10 years, 20 years?
I don't even know what I'm going to have for lunch tomorrow, but not again. No, this world moves incredibly fast. You can't make any specific 10-year plans or anything. Like, we live here, we're healthy, we're enjoying what we're doing. What I want to do is I want to learn. I want to become better at what I do. I want to have a better understanding of what the people around me do, and maybe like explore other directions. But it's hard to predict, and the only thing you can be sure of is if you're not flexible, I don't think you should be working in this industry. It comes with the job, and if you accept that, it's pretty damn amazing. So.
Final. Okay, so there was a question about education, and you decided if, say, you would go back to school. So what kind of knowledge you would expect to get from university? Taking consideration all technology changing very fast, do you expect some fundamental knowledge, or just pretty much some HTML5 or whatever, all this low-level technology?
I think I kind of touched this subject. The teachers should be teaching the students to be curious and to explore on their own and to become obsessed with something. I became obsessed with the web, and then I became obsessed with design, and then with iPhone. And once you become obsessed with something, nothing can stop you, and there's no barrier. You will find the resources to learn what you want to do. And the cool thing about this industry is along the way there are plenty of people willing to help you. And you'll ask them questions, and they'll respond to you, and they'll help you grow even further and further and further. Yeah.
Well, we ran out of time. First of all, huge round of applause for Tim.
Thanks. Beautiful.